need to check the used names list, then write the story. The band names are Claire, Daniel, Margaret, Priya, Nora, Simone, Diane, Kathleen, Rebecca, Trevor, Amber, Addison, Evelyn, Marcus, Graham, Fiona, Lee, Raymond, Walter. I want you to picture the look on my younger brother's face when he realized what he'd just done. Not the moment he said it. The moment he understood it wasn't going to be okay. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. My name doesn't matter as much as the situation does, but for context, I'm 31 years old. I work as a senior claims adjuster for an insurance firm in Columbus, Ohio, and for the past 2.5 years, I have been quietly, consistently, almost embarrassingly generous to my younger brother and his family. We're talking real money. Not, I spotted you $20 at Applebee's money. I mean rent contributions, school registration fees, soccer cleats, dance recitals, grocery runs, Christmas presents for his 3 kids. All of it coming out of my paycheck month after month while I raised my 9-year-old son, Owen, mostly on my own. I divorced Owen's dad when Owen was 4. It wasn't dramatic. We just grew apart, we were too young, and we both knew it. His dad is still in the picture. He takes Owen every other weekend and pays child support reliably, so I'm not going to bash him. But the day-to-day is mine. The school pickups, the sick days, the homework meltdowns at 9 p.m., the birthday parties, the dentist appointments, that's me, alone, figuring it out. And I was proud of that. I built a life that worked. I got promoted twice. I bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood with a yard big enough for Owen to kick a soccer ball around. We weren't rich, but we were stable, and stable felt like everything after a few rough years. My brother, Cooper, is 2 years younger than me. He married his wife Janelle right out of high school. They have 3 kids, ages 8, 6, and 4. Cooper works intermittently in construction. When there's work, there's work. When there isn't, there isn't. Janelle does part-time bookkeeping from home, which helps some months and doesn't in others. They rent a house about 20 minutes from me. And they have been, to put it plainly, financially underwater for most of their marriage. I started helping because that's what I thought you did. Mom always said, family takes care of family. Cooper called me one February asking if I could cover $200 toward his rent because they'd had an unexpected car repair and were short. I said yes. Then it happened again the next month, and the month after that. At some point, $200 became $300. Then it turned into me also covering the registration fee for his oldest daughter's soccer league. Then school supply shopping in August. Then Christmas. I never made it a big deal. I never sat them down and said, here's what I'm giving you and here's what I expect. I just helped because they needed it and I could, and I told myself it was temporary. That Cooper would eventually get a steadier job or Janelle would pick up more hours and things would level out. They didn't level out. And here's the part I have to be honest about. I let it go on because I felt guilty. Guilty that I had divorced and somehow came out okay. Guilty that I had a stable job and a house while my brother was struggling. Guilty that Owen got new sneakers every fall and Cooper's kids sometimes wore shoes a size too small because no one noticed until it was painful. I absorbed that guilt and I turned it into checks and Venmo transfers and Costco runs, and I told myself I was being a good sister. What I was actually doing was funding a lifestyle that had quietly started to resent me for it. I didn't see that part clearly until Easter Sunday. Every year my mom hosts Easter at her house. Big deal in our family. She does a full spread. The kids do an egg hunt in the backyard and everyone brings something. This year I went all out. I spent 3 weeks picking out gifts for Cooper's 3 kids. I got his oldest daughter a beginner's watercolor set with a real canvas pad. She'd mentioned wanting to learn to paint. His middle kid, a boy, had been obsessed with a particular Lego architecture set, so I found it on sale and grabbed it. His youngest, the 4-year-old, got a stuffed animal she pointed at in Target 3 months ago when I happened to be shopping with them. I remembered. I bought it. For Owen, I got a small remote control car. Nothing crazy. Around $30. He'd specifically asked for it, and I knew he'd love it. That was the point. He asked for it, I got it, and I was happy about that. I also had a tote bag in the trunk with the kids' gifts, plus a fruit salad for the table, plus a bottle of sparkling grape juice, because my mom doesn't drink but likes something festive. We got to my mom's around noon. Cooper's family was already there. His 3 kids tearing around the backyard, Janelle on her phone at the kitchen table, Cooper and my mom's boyfriend watching something in the living room. I hugged my mom, set the fruit salad on the counter, and Owen immediately ran outside to join his cousins. The egg hunt happened first. My mom hides plastic eggs with dollar bills and candy inside, and she always makes sure every kid gets roughly the same amount. The kids were shrieking and laughing, and I stood on the back porch watching Owen run with his cousins, and honestly I felt really good. It was a nice day, the kind of day I'd been looking forward to. After the hunt, we came inside for lunch. My mom made a ham, scalloped potatoes, green beans, rolls, the whole thing. We sat around the big table, and for a while it was just normal. Good, even. Then came the gifts. I brought in the tote bag from my car. I had everything wrapped separately. I handed each of Cooper's kids their gifts and set Owen's remote control car in front of him. The kids started opening things, and Cooper's oldest immediately gasped at the watercolor set. She started pulling out the little paint tubes, eyes wide. His middle kid saw the Lego box and lost his mind in the best way. The 4-year-old grabbed her stuffed elephant and wouldn't put it down. Owen opened his remote control car. It was in the original box, intact, batteries included because I'd thought to check. He looked up at me with this huge grin and said, "Mom, this is the one I wanted." That was the moment. That quiet, perfect, totally ordinary moment of my kid being happy about exactly what he asked for. And that's when Cooper looked over at Owen's gift, then at his own kids' gifts, and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Hun, figures. The good stuff goes to the ones with the real family." The table went quiet. I looked at him. "What did you just say?" He leaned back in his chair, casual, like he hadn't just dropped a grenade on Easter lunch. "I'm just saying, you spent, what, 60, 70 bucks on each of mine? Owen gets the same thing every year. Must be nice having a real family to spoil." I didn't understand what he meant at first. Then I did. He was calling Owen less than. He was saying that because Owen came from a divorced household, because it was just me raising him, that Owen's gift, the gift Owen had specifically asked for and been thrilled to receive 30 seconds ago, was somehow lesser. And the implication underneath it was that I, as a single mom, wasn't a real family. Owen was sitting right there. He was 9 years old, and he had just heard his uncle say that. I watched Owen's face. He looked down at his remote control car. The smile was gone. My mom laughed, this uncomfortable, reflexive laugh that she does when she doesn't know what else to do, and she said, "Oh, Cooper, stop." But she didn't tell him he was wrong. Janelle didn't say anything at all. She was looking at her phone. Cooper kept going, which was the thing I still can't fully wrap my head around. He kept going. "I'm just saying, we're a bigger family. We have 3 kids. You act like you're doing us some big favor bringing over a Lego set, but you got 1 kid. It's easier." I put my fork down. I looked at Owen. I said quietly, "Hey, bud, go play with your car in the other room for a minute." He nodded and took his car and left the table. I waited until I heard him in the hallway. Then I looked at Cooper. "How much?" I said. "Did you send me last month for your share of rent?" He blinked. "That's not how much." Silence. "How much have you sent me, total, since February 2022? More silence. "I have Venmo records," I said. "I have every single transfer. You want to talk about who's contributing what to this family? Cooper, let's actually talk about that." My mom started, "Okay, let's not do this at the table." "He started it at the table," I said. I wasn't yelling. I was very, very calm, which I think scared him more than yelling would have. He sat at this table and insulted my son on Easter Sunday in front of his own kids and called my family less real than his, so let's talk about it. Cooper's jaw tightened. I never asked you to help with rent. No, you called me crying about it in February 2022, and I said yes. And then again in March, and in April, and every month since. I also paid Emma's soccer registration, twice. I bought school supplies for all three of your kids last August. I spent over $200 on Christmas gifts for your kids in December. And today I spent almost $200 more on Easter gifts because I genuinely thought that we were family and that meant something. The room was completely still. You said my kid's gift was lesser, I said. Owen asked for that car. I got him exactly what he asked for. He was happy, and you took that away from him in about 4 seconds because you wanted to make a point about something I still don't fully understand. Cooper looked at my mom like she was going to bail him out. She didn't say anything. I'm not doing this anymore, I said. I stood up. I went to the tote bag that was still sitting near the door. I picked up the watercolor set that Cooper's daughter had set on the counter to eat lunch. I picked up the Lego box from next to Cooper's son's chair. I picked up the stuffed elephant that the 4-year-old had left on the bench seat. She started to fuss and reach for it, and I felt awful. Genuinely awful. But I kept moving. I'd put everything back in the tote bag. Cooper stood up. Are you serious right now? Those are for the kids. The kids have a dad, I said. A dad who just sat here and told my 9-year-old son that his family isn't real. You figure it out. You're being insane. I'm being done, I said. I'm done with the rent contributions. I'm done with the school fees. I'm done with the school fees. I'm done with the Christmas shopping. I'm done being your backup plan while you tell my kid he's less than your kids. Janelle finally looked up from her phone. She said, You're punishing the children. I looked at her. I'm stopping something that should have had boundaries 2 years ago. That's not punishment. That's just what it looks like when I stop. I went to the hallway, picked up Owen's jacket, and called his name. He came out of the back room with his remote control car tucked under his arm, and he looked at the tote bag in my hand, then at Cooper, then at me. He's a perceptive kid. He didn't ask questions. We said goodbye to my mom. She hugged me hard and whispered, Call me later. And I nodded, because I wasn't angry at her. Not really. But I also wasn't going to stand there and have a whole conversation in front of Cooper. We drove home. Owen was quiet for a few minutes, and then he said, Mom, was Uncle Cooper being mean to me on purpose? And I had to figure out in real time how to tell a 9-year-old the truth in a way that wasn't going to wreck him. I said, He said something he shouldn't have. It wasn't true. You know that, right? Owen looked out the window. He said we weren't a real family? We are a real family, I said. Real families aren't about how many people are in the house. They're about who shows up. I show up every single day. That's as real as it gets. He was quiet again for a moment. Then he said, Can we try the car in the driveway when we get home? Yeah, bud, absolutely. We spent the rest of Easter Sunday in the driveway with a remote control car, and honestly, it was one of the better hours I'd had in a long time. My phone was going off the whole time. Cooper texted first. You overreacted. The kids are upset. Can you at least drop off their stuff? Then my mom, honey, please call me. Cooper feels bad. I think it was just a bad joke. Then Janelle, I don't know what you want us to say. We didn't plan for you to take the gifts back. The kids cried. Then Cooper again. This is messed up. We've been counting on your help. You can't just pull it without warning. That last one I read twice. We've been counting on your help. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I shouldn't have said that about Owen. Not, I understand why you're upset. Just, we've been counting on it, and you can't pull it without warning, as if the problem wasn't what he said, but that I had the audacity to respond to it. I put my phone face down on the porch railing and watched Owen run the car up and down the driveway. And I thought about the last 2.5 years. How many times I had transferred money and told myself it was temporary. How many times I had bought things for his kids and thought it was keeping the peace. How many times I had absorbed the small digs, the must be nice having just one kid. The you don't get it, you don't have a real family structure. And let them pass because confronting them felt like too much. I had been so busy trying to be generous that I had let someone convince me my son was worth less. That was the line for me. Not the money. Not even the disrespect to me. The moment Owen's smile disappeared when he looked down at that remote control car, that was the line. My mom called that evening. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. She said Cooper felt terrible, that he hadn't meant it the way it came out, that he was stressed about money, and it made him say things he didn't mean. She asked me to consider that the kids shouldn't be punished for their dad's words. She asked me to think about what kind of example I was setting for Owen about how family handles conflict. I thought about that last part for a long time. And then I thought, Owen watched me sit at that table and hear my son insulted and do absolutely nothing for 2 solid minutes. Then Owen watched me stand up, quietly, without screaming or crying, collect the gifts I had brought, and leave. And then Owen and I spent Easter in the driveway with the $30 remote control car, and he asked me if we could do it again next weekend. I think I set a pretty decent example. I called my mom back the next morning. I told her I loved her and I wasn't angry at her. I told her I would not be resuming the financial support, and I would not be returning the gifts, and I would not be having a big family reconciliation conversation until Cooper apologized, not to me, but to Owen. Directly, specifically, for what he said at that table. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "He's proud. You know how he is." I said, "I know, but Owen is 9 and he heard what he heard, and proud doesn't fix that. As of right now, that apology hasn't come." Cooper sent one more text 3 days after Easter that said, "I hope you know you're tearing the family apart over a joke." I didn't respond. Janelle sent a longer message explaining that they were now behind on rent and asking if I could at least help with that 1 month while they figured out next steps. I didn't respond to that either. I'm not enjoying any of this. I want to be clear about that. I don't feel triumphant. I don't feel like I won something. I feel sad, mostly sad that it took this long for me to see how the dynamic had drifted. Sad that my nephew and nieces are caught in the middle of something their dad created. Sad that my brother looked at my son and saw a hierarchy instead of a kid. But I also feel something I haven't felt in 2.5 years, which is like my own house is entirely mine again. My money goes where I decide. My generosity goes where it's received with something that at least resembles gratitude. My son knows that when someone disrespects him, I don't laugh it off and change the subject. Owen asked me last week if we were still going to see Grandma for Memorial Day. I told him yes, we'd figure it out. He said, "Is Uncle Cooper going to be there?" I said, "I don't know yet." He thought about it for a second and then said, "Mom, can we bring the car again just in case?" I said, "Yeah, bud, we can bring the car." I've spent a lot of time since that Easter Sunday turning the whole thing over in my mind. The way you do when something cracks open a part of your life you didn't know needed cracking. What I keep coming back to isn't the anger. It's the sequence. Cooper didn't say what he said because he's a cruel person by nature. He said it because nothing had ever stopped him before. Every time he made a small dig about my divorce, about Owen not having a complete household, about how easy I must have it with just one kid, I let it pass. I smoothed it over. I told myself it wasn't worth the conflict, and in doing that, I taught him, over and over, that those words had no weight, that I would absorb them and keep showing up with the same Venmo transfers and the same tote bags full of gifts. What happened at that table was the natural end of a pattern I had participated in building. That's the part I had to sit with honestly. Not just what Cooper did, but what I allowed to accumulate. There's something nobody tells you about being a generous person. Generosity without boundaries doesn't make you kind. It makes you a resource. And resources don't get respected. They get managed. I had spent 2.5 years being managed, and I had called it being a good sister. That was my mistake, and owning that didn't feel good, but it felt true. The moment I stood up from that table, something shifted that I can't fully explain. It wasn't about the gifts. It wasn't even entirely about the money. It was about the fact that Owen was sitting right there, 9 years old, and he watched me decide what his dignity was worth in real time. That is the part that will stay with him, not what his uncle said, but what his mother did about it. Kids don't remember every wound, they remember whether someone fought for them. I think about the kind of person I want Owen to grow into. I want him to have enough self-respect to walk away from situations that cost him more than they give. I want him to be generous, genuinely, freely generous, without confusing generosity with obligation. I want him to understand that you can love someone and still hold a line, that those two things are not opposites. The only way I can teach him any of that is by living it, not by talking about it over dinner. By actually doing it, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it means your mom is leaving tearful voicemails and your brother is texting about torn-apart families. Cooper hasn't apologized to Owen. I don't know if he will. I've stopped organizing my life around what Cooper does next. What I know is that Owen and I spent the rest of that Easter in the driveway, running a $30 remote control car up and down the concrete until the battery started to die. And he was laughing, and I was laughing, and it was enough. It was more than enough. It was exactly the kind of ordinary, unhurried afternoon that I used to rush past, trying to hold everyone else's life together. What you invest in shapes what you get back. That's not a theory. That's just what I've watched happen, in my own kitchen, in my own family, over and over again. I invested 2.5 years into a dynamic that taught Cooper his cruelty was free. The day I stopped, the price became real. That's all that happened. The accounting finally caught up. I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in Owen knowing, in his bones, not just from something I said, that he comes first. That his mother will pick up every gift she brought before she'll sit there and let someone tell him he's worth less. He knows that now. That's the thing I'd do again without hesitating every single time.